So who writes a better sword art online novel? Reki Kawahara, who created the series, or Keiichi Sigsawa, who's writing a spin-off? We're going to check that out coming up next. Hello everybody, Justus R. Stone here, and on this channel I focus on light novels. I do news, reviews, and countdowns of the most popular titles in Japan on a weekly basis. So if you love light novels, or you're just kind of interested in them, you should consider subscribing. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing volume number 1 of Keiichi Sigsawa's light novel series, Sword Art Online Alternative, Gale Online. This one's subtitled Squad Jam. The novel is released in English by Yen On. If you want to pick up a copy, I do have links to Amazon or the book depository in the description down below. Now this one also just recently had an anime that streamed on Crunchyroll. You could see that it's, I think, 12 episodes. But in any case, it covers volumes 1, 2, and 3 of the light novel series. In Japan, this series has 7 volumes. There will be an 8th, I know that much, because volume number 7 was part 1 of a 2-part storyline. Now this one is obviously a spin-off of the Sword Art Online series by Reki Kawahara. This is very sort of loosely tied to that series. Really, it's only tied to because of Gale Online, which of course was the VR MMO game that featured in the 3rd arc of the Sword Art Online series, the Phantom Bullet arc. That would have been the first sort of half of the 2nd season of the anime, if you've watched the anime. This actually takes place after the events that happened in the Phantom Bullet arc. It's somewhat important for sort of the basis of this story. This one focuses on a main character in no way related to the rest of the series named Karen, and Karen is a first-year college student who has a massive body issue. She's actually very, very tall, not just for a girl, but for a person in Japan in general. And so she's very self-conscious, and she's been made fun of, and boys didn't really want to get romantically involved with her during high school because she towered over all of them, and well, you know, guys and their hang-ups. But in any case, she's had a huge complex about her size. And so when she hears about these whole worlds of VR MMOs and being able to play as an avatar that is very much unlike yourself in real life, she decides to play these games and to try and find an avatar that meets her ideal vision of her physical body. And that turns out to be a very diminutive, cute girl, all decked out in pink desert camo in a game called Gale Online, which of course, if you can't tell by the fact that it has guns in it, it's all about shooting people and monsters. Now in the game, she plays as a character named Len, and she meets up with another female character, and female players are kind of rare in Gale Online, and that is Pitohui, or Pitoi. I'm not too sure. I should have watched the anime, at least the first episode, to get her pronunciation right. Let me know exactly. I think it's Pitoi, because I think the U is silent in Hui, but anyway. Pito, as Len ends up calling her, basically starts teaching Len about the mechanics of the game and everything else, and then tells Len that there's going to be this brand new competition called Squad Jam. And now, when I said this is important to know this happens after Phantom Bullet, the whole point of this is that in Phantom Bullet, Shinon and Kirito teamed up to fight their way through the Bullet of Bullets. Well, this guy, and it's kind of funny because it's very self-meta-referential, a author in Japan ponies up the money to have a competition between squads. So it's between 2 to 6 players per squad, and it's basically a battle royale, and last man standing wins. And so Len is thinking that she's going to team up with Pito, but Pito can't do it, and so she has a friend of hers join Len, this mammoth bear of a guy called M, and so Len and M go into the Squad Jam to try and win the whole thing. Now, overall, I enjoyed this book, but I do have a couple of problems with it, and I'm going to talk about those first. The biggest one that I have is that there's really nothing to pull you into the story, any conflict. This story is about a girl who's just playing a game, and you're just kind of waiting to see if she wins or not. There's not really any major stakes in it for Len. She's doing it for fun. She doesn't even know what the prize is. It's not even like, oh, there's, some sick relative, and if I win the money, I'll be able to give them the medical treatment they need. Or I could think of a million different reasons why entering into a contest would actually have stakes in it, and why it would actually matter. And in the end of the day, none of those things happen. Len is just there to play and have fun, and it's just her own personal desire to not die in a stupid way that really kind of pushes her forward. And I kind of felt the fact that there was no antagonist. I felt that need, that I wanted there to be a reason this was going on. I wanted there to be a reason to root for Len to win. And I found that there just really wasn't for me, that I really just didn't care whether she won or lost, because they didn't give me a reason to care whether she won or lost, outside of the character or liking the character herself. Because it lacked stakes, I kind of just felt like it was easy for me to put the book down and just not, blaze through it, because, oh well, she wins or she loses. Whatever. Now that's my biggest gripe, but does Keiichi Sigsawa write a better Sword Art Online novel than Reki Kawahara? You're wondering that, and I kind of introduced the video with that. Well, the answer is yes and no. So, we've talked lots about Reki Kawahara's villains and whether they're really good villains or not. Admittedly, he's a little all over the map. Some villains work, some villains most certainly do not. But we must argue, or have to argue, that Sword Art Online Aincrad, the very, very first Sword Art story, definitely had stakes. There was definitely a reason we wanted our heroes to win, because losing meant death. This does not have that consequence. So in that case, I award a point to Reki Kawahara for giving us some really hardcore stakes. Even in, Fairy Dance, which is probably, I would say, by and large, one of the worst or weakest stories in the main Sword Art series, there was still stakes. There was still a quest that had an end goal that mattered. So in that case, I'd say Kawahara does a better job. Now, thing that this book really has going for it is it has a main character who is not ridiculously OP, who is actually likable, who has a flaw or a reason that she's playing this game, like a flaw in her mind. It's it's not that I don't think there's anything wrong with being tall, but whatever. Who am I to speak? In any case, I think what I'm trying to say is that a lot of us can relate to having body issues or having a part of us that we don't like. And the idea of wanting to escape and being given this opportunity to escape and be someone else, I think a lot of us can relate to that. And I think that's probably it's probably the reason that we have this whole VR MMO subgenre as it is, right? It is that appeal of escapism and being somebody else, even though you are still whoever you are in the real world. So in that case, Karen/Len, she has a character trait, a drive to be in this game that we at least understand and most of us can somewhat relate to. She doesn't win battles because she is ridiculously overpowered. She wins them because she's lucky, or because she's sneaky, or because she's been taught things by somebody else who is stronger than she is. Pretty much, in other words, she wins her battles because of all the same reasons that the rest of us who play video games win games, because of luck and skill. That's kind of what it boils down to. And so in that case, we don't have that feeling of, oh, here's this ridiculously OP main character that's never going to lose and it's kind of boring. And no, she isn't like that. She is more complex. of a character, and in some ways I would say she's a little bit more approachable and likable as a character. I almost wonder if part of that is because this entire novel is told in third person, whereas Sword Art Online, if you're reading that, anytime Kirito is the character point of view, the book is in first person. I sometimes think that's a really, really like a razor's edge that you're walking, because either the character is going to be super interesting and you'll love reading their voice, or they're going to come across as super vanilla. And that's kind of what Kirito does. He comes across as very vanilla. Len, on the other hand, I like her. She's kind of spicy. She's kind of like, when she thinks that she passes by these girls and they're kind of whispering about her, she's like, man, if this was Gun Gale Online, I'd just take my P90 and hose you. Like, I like that kind of like feistiness in her. She's a fun character and she's an interesting character to read about. And it's a good thing too, because like I said, when there aren't really any stakes, the only reason to root for her is because you like her. And thankfully, she is a likable character. Even M, the sort of, arguably, I guess, the sub-character in this, a secondary character, well, once you get through the book, you might have a very different idea of M and who he is, and you might be a bit more curious about who he actually is, because you get to see some different sides of him. And in a lot of ways, I think that's kind of the thing about this book, is that it really is an introduction. It's an introduction to the world of Gun Gale Online, separate from Sword Art Online. And definitely, Sigsawa does a great job of building the game aspect of this book. A lot better. You can tell that you have a writer who's a lot more into games, and most definitely a lot more into guns and gun mechanics than, say, Reki Kawahara was when he wrote his Gun Gale Online story. There are far more references to very specific models of guns, why a character would use a certain type of gun, what that gun is, why this gun is popular, potentially even why Russian guns are cheaper to buy in Gun Gale Online than American guns. It's a lot more of a living world, like you feel like there's been a lot more thought put into the actual game mechanics that are going on in this world. Even the fact that Sigsawa takes the time to discuss just how the developers have tried to create a backstory to the whole Gun Gale Online universe, and how in many ways it's filled with plot holes and doesn't make sense, but who cares, because none of us are really here for the story anyway. We're here to shoot guns. So in a lot of ways, you have a far better world building in Gun Gale Online. You have better characters, I would say, in Gun Gale Online. All the characters are a lot more interesting. You have at least some of those ideas thrown in there about playing these games as a manner of escapism from whatever sort of difficulties you have in life. Karen isn't the only person who's playing the game with an avatar that is entirely different from how she is in the real world, as we learn as we go through the book. In a lot of ways, a lot of the building blocks of this book are a lot stronger than what Kawahara did in the actual Sword Art Online series. I would say the writing in general is a little bit better than what we see in the main Sword Art Online series. So in terms of stakes, I have to give it to Kawahara. But in terms of just about everything else, I kind of have to give it to Sigsawa. The book is written very well, and as I said, the gun battles are done well because of Sigsawa's knowledge of guns. I liked the fact that I felt more like this was a functioning game, that it wasn't just sort of window trappings created by someone who has only a cursory knowledge of games. I liked all those aspects of this book. And like I said, I liked the character of Len as well. I'm interested to see where she goes from here. The only thing about this book, though, is, like I said, because there's no stakes, when it ends, I didn't really feel that sort of overwhelming urge of, man, I can't wait for the next volume. Because it just didn't really leave me hanging there and feeling like that. But it will be interesting to see where this goes. There are some hints that Pito might be a much different character than what we are initially led to believe and what Len initially believes. So that could be something that is interesting to be explored in future volumes. Overall, Gun Gale Online Volume Number 1, it's a good book. I wish the stakes were higher, but it's got a really good main character. It's got a very good world building aspect to it, and the game mechanics are a lot more interesting and make a lot more sense in this one. And thankfully, we don't have somebody bringing a lightsaber to a gun battle, which just is ridiculous. So those are my thoughts on volume number 1 of Sword Art Online Alternative Gun Gale Online. My next review is going to be on another brand new number 1. In fact, this one wasn't supposed to be out until next week, but my local bookstore got it early, so I was pretty excited. And that is going to be volume number 1 of World End. What do you do at the end of the world? Are you busy? Will you save us? I've been really looking forward to this one just because, well, it sounds kind of cool and different. So that'll be my next review. So if you're brand new to the channel and you love light novels, or you're just interested in them again, you should subscribe because I do reviews like this on a weekly basis, as well as weekly countdowns of the top 10 best-selling light novels in Japan, news, and the light novel podcast is posted on this channel as well. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.